Thank you for listening to Depictions Media Radio. Welcome back, everybody. Copywriting. The words that make the public feel what we want to feel about our business. It isn't an easy job, one. And it isn't something that we all can exactly do. There's a process to this. Your copywriter's got to know what it is that you want to stand for and how you want to stand for it. There's a whole story about why you do what you do and what makes you get up and go into the office every day, what that tug is. And then they got to take that, put it into words, and the right words so that it attracts the right person so that your business lights up. We're going to talk to a copywriter today, and here's a brief thing about what he says on LinkedIn, and it is about helping technology companies attract more business and create more excitement by writing high quality content that informs and inspires and motivates your ideal customer. In David Zuvic, he does that if you go to his website, he does that in many other industries and on many other platforms. And if he can take technology and turn it into something interesting that lights people's life up, imagine what he could do for you if you're a coach or a consultant or some sort of wellness expert. He can do this with any business because that's what a good copywriter does. A great copywriter learns to listen before he puts the pen to paper. So let's welcome David Zuvic to the show and hear about his process and some of his successes.
Recording in progress.
Hey, David.
Hello. I was going to say good morning. Hey, Michael.
Well, it just turned noon, so.
Exactly. How are you?
Good.
Good.
Dealing with the usual ups and downs, I guess, So.
Daily, yes. Daily issues, goings-ons.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
So, hang on a second here.
I was thinking, do you do any podcasts in person?
I mean, like, where we do them live?
Yeah, instead of on Zoom.
Yeah, yeah, we can do that. Yeah, done that. The last live cast that I actually did was actually Cloverdale Chamber hosted an all candidates meeting. So it can be done on site. Yeah,
That's a good idea. Yeah, because I mean, I enjoy this part. It's so much easier, but there's something to be said about doing it live.
Yeah. So, I like you said, it's easier if I record and edit than because everybody gets to hear all the flubbers, and it happened, right? You know.
Well, you can do the same with live. I mean, you don't have to do it live. You just record it together.
Yeah.
I guess there's that.
Yeah. That could be done. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I got to tell you though, I don't know if you do this on purpose, but I thought about it after we spoke last time, and I thought why did we talk for an hour? Like I was surprised because I thought you would just say hello and ask a few questions and it'd be a few minutes, and I thought it's brilliant because now we feel like we know each other and we're not trying to get through that part, and I thought what a great idea. So if
Yeah,
you're not doing it on purpose, keep doing it.
Well, it was kind of by design. I have had this was actually live radio. So we brought a young lady in, and she was all excited, and she came with her social worker to talk about what it was like to have a serious disability, because people get these misconceptions about, especially neurodiversity, like people's brain working differently, right? And we brought her in, and she's live, and when we went straight on air, the little red light came on in the booth, and she clammed up. Her social worker did all the talking. The light went off, and she chatted. It was like,
Wow.
and you get a few of them where the other one was there's actually a serious phobia out there. I've run into it once, and other friends of mine have said, well, yeah, I had one, and it turns out that there's a serious phobia about standing in front of a microphone or a camera. And
Absolutely.
if you don't have... Actually, Zoom as a platform eliminates some of that. But in general, if you make people feel comfortable ahead of time, you get a much better conversation going. So,
Absolutely. Even though, like in this case, for sure, I would be thinking, all these variables of what could happen.
Yeah.
I'm going to be nervous as hell. And then after I'll be thinking, geez, I didn't even talk about this or that. So it helped definitely make me more comfortable. So.
Yeah. And if ever you... if you feel like, hey, I got more to say, call me.
All right.
I do. Wait, once I have somebody on, unless I have a really bad experience with it, there's like maybe one or two people that I won't ever invite back. One, again, this was a live radio situation. He was advocating for better training and better handling of how we straighten teeth.
Straighten teeth?
Yeah, I get this because he's on a CPAP machine. If you know what overnight CPAP thing to help you breathe overnight, because he suffers from breathing apnea. Okay, and when we got him live on air, he threatened to kill a bunch of dentists I was live on air at UBC. The police were showing up. Security showing up. And
So how'd you handle that?
well, first thing was I had something I don't have here as an auto DJ. I flipped on the auto DJ, so we went straight to music.
Okay.
And then I politely said, "The interview's over. You need to leave now." I said, "We can't have you threaten anybody in any way, shape, or form. It's just simply not acceptable. Can't have it. Can't do it." So the interview's over, and we won't invite you back. It's not going to happen that way. And he tried to get upset with me about it, and I said, "No, don't get upset. Just leave." I said, from what you just did, the station manager already triggered the security and the police. They're on their way. My advice to you is go, and nothing more will happen." And he tried to argue back, but I said, no, there's no argument. Just leave.
Yeah, and once you cross that line, you can't go
yeah.
back.
It was like, oh, man. The station manager was pounding on the glass. Like, what's going on in there? What the hell is going on? And it's like, because she thought I was in danger.
Sure.
Yeah,
well, of
course, right? So screening process is important. It makes you feel comfortable. It makes me feel comfortable. I know that, and doing it in some other situation other than a coffee shop or something like that, it actually works out better. Again, Zoom as a platform has fixed a lot of that for me.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's good.
So yeah, but once we get through the initial screening process and everything, it's like, I've had great success. So yeah.
So it works.
Yeah, it works.
I can tell you that too. It works.
Yeah,
I like it.
We just got to stick with it, right? Once we get those screening processes. So anyway, I have already read an intro based on your website and your LinkedIn profile.
Okay.
And you do a lot of writing.
Getting there.
Yeah. So, why don't we start with this? First question is, why do you get so passionate about writing? So, what's the passion there? Something along that lines. And we'll get started in 5, 4, 3, 2. All right, let's welcome David to the show now, and like just right off, David, you're a good writer, and what makes you so passionate about writing and writing people's stories and doing the copywriting that you do?
That's a very interesting question, because I don't consider myself passionate about writing. When people say I love to write, I think back to that old Odd Couple TV show where Oscar Madison and Felix Unger, and they were talking about Oscar, who was the sports writer, saying, "You must love to write." And he said, "No, nobody loves to write. They hate writing. They love what they get, the result." And that's kind of me. So my passion is not so much doing writing, it's bringing out a story. I love stories. I just get hooked on any story, and I assume everybody's like that, but I don't know, and so when I'm writing a book for somebody, it's an adventure for me, because it's like reading the story. I'm learning about it, and then when I write it, I find ways to express it better than what we did in an interview, let's say, with somebody. I have one person I'm writing a book with, and he's read over 100 self-help books, and he's lived his life, evolved his own brand of self-help, and he's never kind of lives his life that way. He works with people and uses his methodology. But then he met me and we started talking, and I'm writing his book, and I get heavily into questions when I interview people, because I really want to understand it. I don't want to just copy what you said and write it, because there's no passion in that, I guess. There's no fun in that. You're just writing down something the guy's said. So I ask a lot of questions, and what's amazing is he's almost always got an answer, which tells me he really knows his stuff. Mm-hmm. So I get to ask really deep questions because I don't quite get what he's saying, or I get it, but everybody does that. What's so unique? And so we go down these rabbit holes, and at the end we always go, wow, that's amazing. Like, both of us are so excited because we really got to the root of things, and now we've got a way to explain it to people that makes sense. A lot of times it's actually definitions of words. And that's one of the reasons I keep my language pretty simple.
Yeah.
Because what he's discovered is if you're reading and go past a word you don't fully understand, you start to kind of lose interest. You forget what you've read that page. You ever had that experience?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Even if say you stop and you go to dictionary.com, because we don't have the books anymore. It's all on a Google search, and you go and look up the word. By the time you did all that, you forgot what it was that you what had sucked you into the book, right?
That can happen, but if you look it up, it helps if you get into a habit. Mm-hmm. Because what I learned growing up was you don't have to look up the word. Like the teacher would tell me, just understand the word from the context. And so that's the way I went. Whereas my brother, he's always been a big reader of fiction. He always has a dictionary with him. Or he used to. Now he's got his phone. And I always thought, he's a slacker, or he, whatever. But he was doing it right. I was doing it wrong, I discovered, because I started doing that more, looking up the words that I don't get. And like you say, sometimes it's hard, because what was I doing again? But you get used to it. It actually works better.
Yeah.
And a book I just recently read, a friend of mine, it was very simple, and it was about being a divorce coach. So it was his experience of getting divorced and what he learned about it, and to help people. And he asked me, what can you tell me? Like, I read it, and I said, hey, I finished your book. And he said, can you give me some feedback? I said, the best feedback I can give you is that I finished reading it. And he says, what do you mean? I said, books like that, partway through, I just stopped reading it for one reason or another. So I think a big part of me finishing was he didn't use a lot of big words, and when he did, he defined them, especially if they were, lawyer terms or something like that. Yeah. Make sure he defined them. And I think that was a big part of it. And he said he made sure he didn't have a lot of fluff in there, because he thinks that also causes people to lose interest. You're trying to fill up the pages, kind of thing.
Well, yeah, as a reader is like, oh, yeah, sure, let me just skim through that part. Now, where's the meat and potatoes again, right?
Right.
Because on your LinkedIn page, you talk about a lot of technical writing, mm-hmm. and there's some elongated or twisted words in technology that in normal language is like it means something, but you flip it around into tech and you're like, oh, I didn't realize that's what it meant, and now you're confused, right?
Exactly. And you start to yawn and it's really dry and you fall asleep.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I use the same technique there. I make sure I don't assume they know stuff, because it's written. Most of those things are written for engineers, mm-hmm. but a lot of times an engineer will give it to his boss and say, sign off on it, maybe. And they're not going to be technical. So
Yeah.
if you want to sell, you can be technical, but also make it very simple. And it's a fine line, I guess, but I enjoy doing that there as well. I would
Yeah.
use a lot of diagrams, and I would explain those terms or try not to use them at all,
Yeah.
and get the point across. And yeah, it works well.
Yeah. Some of the uh, my favorite technical thing is actually E equals MC squared.
Right.
Now, if for those of us who took a lot of physics and got into quantum theory, we know that E equals MC squared is not the equation. It's actually something else. It's twisted in because they were looking for a relationship that how mass was created from energy, and so but everybody knows, because I could go into the explanation of what E equals mc squared really means, but the public doesn't. You get yawns and you get like nods and people falling asleep, and that's why I stopped in the whole thing of it and it just said no. But everybody understands that. Hey, that's Einstein's theory. Yay! I know something, and that's what people, when they pick up a book, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to learn something, right? So we
Well, is
make
that
it
what
easy for
Einstein
them.
did too then? Was Einstein trying to simplify it by making it equals MC
Oh,
squared?
some other person did that for him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he was just simply trying to find a relationship. That was the theory, that there was a relationship between mass and energy, and that was it. And somebody else came along and said, "Hey." The conversation could have gone something like, "Hey, Albert, why don't we simplify this so that the public understands what they're looking at?" and
Right.
and that's what it seems like you do for a lot of people, is that you work with, that you make it so that, okay, yeah, that's great, but we need to make it so that the public understands what it is you're talking about, so that they become interested.
Well, and that's the thing with the internet. There's so much information. You could learn about anything you're interested in. So, to what depths do you want to go? And most of us don't want to go that deep. We don't have the time, or we don't need to know that. We just need to know a bit more. And so that's kind of where I fit in. I like to be one step removed from the highly technical, because they need to know it, but the rest of us don't. We're not going to design a satellite system, but it's nice to know how it works. And one of the great things, it just reminded me of, I was in the satellite industry, and there was one product we made. It was about this big, and it was about $300.
Okay.
But people, some customers would say, "Yeah, but I can get that for $100." And so we had to find a way to work with that. So, because, yeah, you can, right? So we finally showed people that satellite systems are serial, which means one line goes through everything.
Yeah.
There's not a bunch of different circuits. It's everything comes together. You start with the satellite signal coming down to a dish, into a receiver, and then through, adding power, and then goes off to maybe your TV or whatever. It's one line. So this is a multi-million-dollar piece of equipment with a satellite in the sky, and you're going to go with a cheap $100 box that might work versus ours, which will take out the noise. This one might put in noise for an extra $200. Are you really going to take that chance? So it was fun, actually, to explain the differences technically, but also to say, explain the whole system, because people that buy the equipment might not realize that everything's going through this one little box. And it's crazy to go cheap. Some things you can go cheap on, but Where to go cheap is the key.
Where to go cheap? Yeah, that is also another good question. Where should you cheap out, and where should you put your money into, right? And I would say that don't go cheap with your run of the mill copywriter. Find the copywriter who wants to put some time and depth into it and pay him a little more, but the end result is brilliance, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's a value thing. We always talked about that um, it's not about spending more. It's about where to go cheap where you can. And so we're very proud of the fact that a customer would come and say, I want this piece of equipment, and say, well, what do you need it for? And then realize you don't need to pay that much. You can go cheap because you don't need all that fancy stuff, because you are going to end up with that customer for life. And so never go for the quick wins. Never go for just going after the quick money. Right. Go for the long haul. I guess we're going off on tangents, but I'm also about customer service. So I like to keep my customers as long as possible. So if I'm going to agree to do work at a certain price, I'm going to do my best work anyway. Yeah. So I better do the right price. So because otherwise you're going to be sitting there thinking, well, he's only paying me this. I'm not going to do a good job. That doesn't help me at all. No. I might keep him as a customer, but my work is going to be crap.
Yeah. Well, you got to feel good about what you're doing, right?
Yes, you do.
Yeah. I know we talked a lot of technical stuff and everything, but when you commission an artist, you as being the artist in this case, right? You if you were asking a painter to come paint your portrait, you would definitely make sure that, hey, I'm going to put as much budget in there to hire the best guy possible, right? Mm-hmm. And again, leading back to, you want to make sure that you hire the right guy in this case, who's going to do not just produce the first mile, but you want him to go past it and really put something into it,
Yeah, exactly. Like if you want your portrait painted, you would go to the best portrait painter you could budget. But if all you need is a little logo for your website, you're not going to spend all that money for this great portrait that's just going to be reduced down to here. So, as I say, it's not always about the most money you can spend. It's fitting it properly and managing your budget to, let's say, promote your business with a website. What do you spend your most money on, and where to get your best value?
Yeah.
Or putting your money. So
yeah.
Some of the stuff I write, it's not going to cost much, or it'll cost too much for me to do it. You can get somebody cheaper that focuses more on LinkedIn profiles or something,
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I really love is I'm not going to try to promote myself to everybody the same and say, well, you should use me. If I don't think it's a good match, I'll find somebody else. I network with a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I'd rather be in it for the long haul and have a good name. Well, being honest, like I really don't care for contracts. I just go by a handshake, but a lot of people need contracts. Great. But my word is my bond. So I make sure we understand each other before we say, and that's one of the good things about contracts, because there's points that you don't consider when you're talking that you can put in a contract and say, well, no, we agreed on this. We did? I don't remember that. We'll take a look. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess in that sense, it's good. It's more of a laying out how you'd like to, 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 how do business together.
Yeah. So, one of the things that I noticed is like you write books and you write techie stuff that helps suck the public into that satellite dish. You also write screenplays.
Yeah.
And it's something that you know, on the marketing end, you hear this from people a lot. There's like, oh, I'll just go by. I want the word of mouth thing, but if you don't have the right copy out there, and say you decide I'm gonna shoot this video myself, and people can tell when you don't have it scripted out versus you're just spitballing it, right? It's like, and which you think is going to draw more customers? Of course, the scripted version is going to draw more customers, because
Absolutely.
you
And
have it laid out.
Just the fact that I'm not going to go as much, because that's terrible, and you're not constantly searching for the words you're trying to say, and people are just sitting there waiting.
Mm-hmm.
So having something scripted and nice and short and sweet, that's what a script is for screenplays. You've got a book that you're trying to fit in to a much more condensed thing, and you got to use very few words. So that's great practice. That's how I started writing.
The words that the person would hear is few, but the background it becomes the rest of the words. I always like. I felt bad and excited for the screenwriters of Lord of the Rings.
Okay.
Because if you read The Hobbit, right, it's like he gets down into the detail of what the rug looks like on the floor.
Yeah.
It's like, it's there, but it isn't what's actually being read in the script. It's got to be there, though, right?
That's right. That's right.
And that's what becomes interesting when you're doing the screenplays, right? You got to make sure the detail is there, but it's not going to appear necessarily so forth in the words, right?
It's actually quite funny. The way they do movies, in a sense, is wrong at a lot of times, because the screenwriter is kind of isolated, and so he's got to put in as much detail as possible without stepping on the toes of the actor, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you'd say he lifted his right eyebrow in question and then turned to look, you're getting into his realm now, the actor's realm, because what you're supposed to do is say he was worried. And now it's up to the actor to figure out how to present that. And you have to, as a writer, like you're not supposed to say he was 6 feet tall, blonde hair, 29 years old. You're supposed to describe the character over time so that people picture him and they know what fits best into the movie. And the same with the actor. They need to be able to understand the character so they can create him.
Yeah.
And that's why it's too bad the screenwriters don't work with the actors, but you can't, because they don't get the actor till after, and so it's a funny process. But it's a totally different style of writing.
Yeah.
I really love it, because I'm not the kind of writer that can do like the Lord of the Rings, that can write all the little details and get the mood with everything. I'm more of a technical writer.
Yeah.
So screenplays, short and sweet, and
yeah, I jumped all the way to absolute ridiculous on that one with Lord of the Rings, but back to real life now. When you're working with a client that wants that 60-second video to promote their business, what kind of a process do you go through to help them develop that?
I like to get into as much understanding of the business as possible. So it would be a call, an interview, and just chat. Understand the business, understand the people in the business, because it's usually the owner and some of the high level people that have their personality, especially if one of them is going to do the video.
Yeah.
What do they like and all that, because putting different words than they would say would be awkward for them. And so I like to just know as much about the business as I can, and then similar to the satellite equipment that explain the whole value of going cheap or not. I'd want to find out what sets this company apart, what they really strive for, because maybe they are all about customer service. So I'd want to bring that out, because that's kind of what they focus on when they deal with you. So you want that video to show what the company's like, because when a customer comes to that company, they're kind of expecting that kind of personality or company. So I'm trying to line up as much as possible, because what happens a lot of times is, say in a website, they're going to have their mission statement and they're going to have their core values and all that sort of stuff. And it's really generic. And it's a lot of times I wonder, is that real, or is that what you think you're supposed to put? So I don't like that kind of video. I don't like the kind of core values. I'd rather, if you look at the website, you will get an understanding of their core values because of what they talk about. And same with the video. I'd rather they just give me an understanding. And that kind of comes after, because at the first, when you first meet a company, a customer, you're going to get their facade of what they think they're supposed to be. And I like to get past that and get really what they're like, because that's what people want. They want to know what you're like. They don't want this fake thing that they're not going to feel like they're actually dealing with a person.
Yeah.
So I just like to get it to a very familiar place where they can, I can write something that shows their personality and what they're really like.
That makes sense. You got to get, if you want the right person patronizing your business, you got to let them see what's inside.
I think so. It's like getting into the door and actually working with the people, instead of getting that front of what they want you to see.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it takes longer than most people, but I don't care. I think it's worthwhile, and I get a better product out of it.
Yeah.
So and hopefully a long-time customer. So.
Yeah. So you want that. You keep going back to the long-time customer, because that's what feeds your business the best, right?
I think so. I think everybody should be like that. I know a lot about it. Time is money, but the investment, the extra time investment I think is always worthwhile, because you'll figure out if you really want to work with this customer or not. And most of them I do, but there are a few where you're thinking, this isn't going to go well. We're just clashing, or so in those cases, it's good if it's short, but for the most part, once you get to know people, it's a lot more fun to work with them.
Yeah. How do you get? Here's a question for you. How do you get people to open up when you first start talking to them?
The best way is find something that you agree on. So if I look and I see the background and I say, I see something that is familiar to me, oh, you got a guitar there? Oh, do you play? And just to break the ice, or you can talk about the weather or how your weekend was, anything to find something that you have a similarity in. And it just makes it much easier, because especially when you see the person smile and open up, bingo, you're there, and now you can both relax and have a little fun and then you'll just turn to business pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that makes sense.
There's kind of a formula. It's affinity, reality, communication. So if you build on one of them, you'll build on all of them. And reality is that thing where you have agreement on. So affinity, agreement, communication. If you have good agreements, then the affinity goes up, you start to like each other, and the communication goes up. So if you focus on one and bring it up, it'll bring the other two up. And so if I can't find something to agree on, maybe I just keep talking till I find something. I don't know. But the easiest one is that finding some agreement that you have together.
Well, that's a pretty interesting formula.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it works pretty good.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have affinity, you're not going to talk a lot. Or it's going to be yelling, you know.
Yeah. It's like, oh God, when is this conversation going to be over with? Right.
Right.
and that doesn't build good content.
No.
Oh.
Exactly. So it's best to find something you've got agreement in that will get you guys talking, bring up the communication, and then you end up liking each other more. Sometimes it's tough, you know.
Yeah.
It could be the other person is not open to having a discussion, wants to go straight to business, and in that case, it's okay. But I still tend to joke around, keep it light until I find something that makes them laugh, or something that hits with them that will take them out of that just straight business, because seriousness is overrated. I don't think you have to be serious to be successful. You know, like, I gotta work. Hey, I can work and have fun. And that's what I try to remind myself, because you get too serious, you're working, and what are you working for? You're killing yourself, you're not enjoying life. So anytime I'm working with anybody, I keep it as light as possible, but work my ass off for sure.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, yeah. No. That particular word is okay in small portions.
Right.
Because a lot of our business owners are moms, or they work at home, and dad may have someone run past, right, with delicate ears, but
Right.
How do you? It's would that be? There's a good thing, right? Right there, audience, right? Who's actually going to be reading it, viewing it, or listening to it, right? How do you gauge so that you're going to hit the right audience?
That is a great question. That's the toughest one in my mind, because you got to take into consideration the business, what they build or what their service is, and who they sell to make sure you get that language. But in a sense, I know people say you really got to focus on the target market. And it makes sense. I mean, you can't focus on everybody. It never works. Everybody tries, but it never works.
Yeah.
You've got to start with a target audience. But really, it does kind of evolve itself when you're working with the customer, because they are telling you who it's for. I mean, if you just focus on the product and don't think about who it's for, you're probably going to have a problem. But trying to just figure out the target market, how to talk to them. You got to make sure you've done it in the end, but most of the time it just sort of happens, because which is why I get into such heavy detail with the questions and try to figure out not only what the product does, but its application. And then when you figure out the application, you figure out how your product really does well in that application, or how it stands out. So it just automatically goes to the right market in that sense. But the process of really getting to know the company and the product is how I get there.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does actually make sense.
So if you just keep it very general in the learning about the company or the product, so you can write their website, yeah, you're probably going to keep it general. It's going to go out to everybody. It won't be targeted. But the more you delve into the product and what they're trying to do, the more it'll automatically go to that target market.
Yeah.
But it's funny because you brought that up. Sorry to interrupt.
Go ahead.
I popped into my head the stories I write about my parents, and I think, who is my target market there? And so it kind of makes me laugh. I guess in that sense, it's more just my Facebook group, and people that grew up with me knowing my parents. It's kind of to reconnect them, because when I was young, all the parties were at our house, and everybody got to know my parents because my parents are so social. And so when I talk to old friends, I grew up in Toronto. When I talk to old friends, they always say before I hang up, say hi to your parents. And I never think of saying that to them because I never knew any of their parents. So I guess that's anyway. Sorry, I went off on a tangent.
No, but they kind of make sense, right? I knew everybody's parents, but not too many people actually had the opportunity to get to know my parents.
Okay.
So
how come?
Mostly because my parents tried to keep everything kind of private. They were welcoming to an extent, They would never turn you away if you showed up at dinner, but at the same time they kept a lot of things very private, and
Gotcha.
some of it is to be totally transparent and or should I say vulnerable about it. My father was an addict.
Oh, okay.
So you want to keep that in the closet, right?
Of course.
And the fact that I admit that in public irritates my brother and sister. They're like, "Oh, you shouldn't be talking about that." It's like, but how do you? If I keep it in the closet and then somebody else is going through the same thing that I went through as a kid or with their parents, it's like, how do they know that there's really help out there? So
very true. And I'm sorry I forced your hand, but I'm happy you.
No. I done a couple shows on like 12-step versus other methods of helping people through the trauma that cause these things. And so those who listened to me for a long term, they already knew that there was some history there. So,
good.
But with that being said, then it's like, how do you have people in the same industry? Because you're going to work with multiple people in the same industry, I'm sure. And how do you make sure that because one has a different audience than the other, especially when you're talking about coaches and wellness people and things like that. It's like that one guy's going to have a totally different audience. They're doing the same kind of work, but one's going to have a totally different audience than the other.
And how do I deal with that?
Yeah. How do you deal with that?
It's definitely a case-by-case kind of thing. And I've been around long enough that if there's any possibility of clash or overlap, I would not take on that second customer and find them a replacement. Mm-hmm. Because I know things, so that might, use against the other one sort of thing. And it's a tough one because you hate to turn business away. But I've turned business away before. You get over it very quickly. If there is any possibility that there is an overlap, I would refer them to somebody else and explain why. It's tough because you always feel like you're hurting their feelings.
Well,
but yeah, it's. I just wouldn't do it. I have had to deal with that before, and it usually isn't noticed at the beginning, but after you've worked with them for a little bit and realize, hold on, there's an overlap, and I'm very upfront about it and say, what are we going to do here, because there could be some conflict, and as long as the more open you are about things, the easier it is, and so far there hasn't been any problems. Everybody understands, and they usually find their own other person, but like I say, I have lots of networking, so I could refer them, but I just haven't had to yet.
Yeah. You talk about networking, and it's like we actually found each other by way of a process through networking. So yeah,
there you go.
A common friend.
That's great.
In results, you work with people, and what is I know every business is going to have a different result, but a different end result. But what is the general result that you want to have happen?
Oh, well, that's easy. I want them to make more money. So whatever I do for them, I want their business to grow. There's really no other outcome. You don't want... marketing is a tough thing because most companies lose money on marketing. They waste money. It goes down the drain. It wasn't effective. And it's a tough thing to get past, because a lot of companies I'll talk to, they know they want marketing, they know they need marketing, but they need like a guarantee that they're not throwing their money away, which is impossible. So my outcome is always that they're satisfied that they made money on the marketing, because a lot of times customers will do marketing because they're supposed to, and they don't check to see if actually it's making them money. Because let's say they were making $1 million a year before, they started doing marketing, adding $100,000 of cost to marketing, but they're still only making $1 million a year. So that's ridiculous. But they're supposed to do marketing, so they do it because they got a brand and it keeps the brand going at $1 million. No, it should be, if you're paying $100,000 for marketing, at minimum you're making $1.1 million after that. But that minimum can't stay. I mean, it's got to grow. Otherwise, you're wasting your time, because marketing isn't just about people knowing who you are and staying alive as a business. It's growth. You have to make more money. So I always encourage customers to track, how things are going with the marketing. And if they're not, I'll do it for them, because you got to be checking to see if it's all marketing should be checked to check your statistics, do A and B testing so that you see what works best. What happens a lot of times is they'll do marketing for a couple of months. Well, that's not working. Let's try something else. No, marketing's a slow process. Sometimes it's quicker, but if something's not working, you don't just throw it away. You try something a little different and see, is that working better? Great, we can get rid of this. Let's try this now. Does this work better? And so it's a constant change of trying out different things. One customer I do blogs for, I do 2 blogs a week for, and it's been a slow process because they used to do pay-per-click. And that was their main way of getting customers. And I said, you know what? I have a problem with pay-per-click because when I'm doing a search on Google and the top searches are ads, I don't even look at them anymore. And they're like, why not? I said, because they are trying to get as close to what you're looking for. And usually it's not what I'm looking for. Or they're just trying to sell me something when I'm just looking for information. So I just stopped looking at them because oftentimes I'd look and no, that's not what I want. So I got frustrated. So if you're going to do pay-per-click, I'm not saying this wrong, but don't just do it. Do also blogs or some form of outreach to explain your company. And this customer has been doing that for almost a year now, and now they've seen this growth of organic inflow of customers that stay, because a lot of the pay-per-click customers, they don't stay. They might buy it and then they return it after. So in that case, they're starting to do some testing to see what works best, and they think they both work. But so now they just got to figure out how much budget on each one they do, which is, like I say, you're just constantly evolving your marketing to see what works best. But always check your stuff, because you might be losing money and not even know it. You're just throwing money away, and then you'll just get upset and stop doing marketing.
Yeah.
So,
well, yeah, because I hear a lot of people talk about, oh, I just want to grow organically, but when there is a growth organically, because you're checking to see what it is that you're doing and who you're sitting with, or actually sending you referrals, and what you're saying to people really does describe, you're checking all that, right? Because marketing is, you got to add the tracking aspect to it. But
like my sister, she just bought a massage therapy business, because she's a registered massage therapist. So she bought a clinic, and so I said, "Great, let me do your website for you. Let me help you with the marketing for it." And she goes, "Well, I'm okay. I've always gone by word of mouth." I said, "Yeah, but you work your ass." Sorry, I got one more strike. I know.
Yeah.
And you work so hard. You're killing yourself. You got a great name, but you don't have to. I said, just budget $100 a month for marketing, and you can do simple things in the neighborhood, and that'll bring in more customers. Let's try it out. If it doesn't work, we'll try something else. So just put aside 100. That's nothing. Your business is already making good money. But it's hard to change that attitude of, I can do it myself. I'm a one-man show, which, it's the cheapest way to go. I totally get it, because I'm the same way.
Yeah.
But at some point, and that's the thing, I can't do my own marketing because of the same problem that marketing has to be consistent. I got to do it at least, if I'm going to do it once a week, I got to do it once a week.
Yeah.
And as soon as something comes along, I got to do that. It's a higher priority, and then the marketing falls off. So I have to hire somebody to do my marketing, so I know it's going to stay consistent. And a lot of times, that's what happens with businesses. No, I do it myself. Great. A lot of times I say, hey, get in touch once a week. We'll brainstorm and help each other. And,
there's a good idea.
Because then you motivate each other, and you're like, our meeting's starting tomorrow again. I better make sure I get done what I said I would do. So I tell that to people all the time. If you're going to do it yourself, get a partner, some other business, some friend, and meet every week so you can help each other, because it's all about consistency.
Yeah. So anyway, because we're about out of time now. And believe me, it's been great talking to you, and we'll have to have you back.
I'd love it.
So, best ways to get a hold of you and get started working with you?
You can go to my website, geniemarketing.net, or you can call or text me on my phone. Should I just give you my phone number?
Yeah, sure.
604-856-0305.
All right, Dave. It's been great talking to you,
Yeah, you too,
And
Michael.
we
Been great.
learned a lot about writing and marketing. So it's been
I'm
awesome.
glad it was fun, and I'm sure after I get off this, I'll be thinking, oh, I should have said this, this, this. So yeah, I'd love to talk again.
Yeah,
There's
that's
lots
where you're going
more.
to come back is for another interview. All
Awesome.
right. Thanks again,
Thanks so
Dave,
much.
and thank you everybody for listening to Dave talk about copywriting and marketing and book writing. So do get a hold of him. He Google searches very well at Dave Zuvic. All right,
Thanks again.
all right. Thanks, Dave.
Take care.
And I looked up at a shooting star, and then I wondered who you are. I just need to know. So I wished upon that shooting star, and then I wondered where you are. Is it destiny, or is it meant to be? Power of the mind is something we cannot hide. Oh, oh, help us to go and I looked up at that shooting star, and then I wondered who you are. I don't know your name, so I wish upon that shooting star, wondering if you feel the same. Is this destiny, or is it meant to be? Take me like a little child in your arms. We can drift away into another world.
This show has been produced by Depictions Media. Please contact us at depictions.media for more information.